It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of The Grind Line here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by my line mates, Evan Sabourin and Devin Little. We also got a special guest here from Prospect Corner, Peter Baracchini. As you can guess, we are going to talk about prospects and talk about the Detroit Red Wings prospect pool, which we do every year around this time. So, but Evan, this is the first episode where you're on with this prospect deep dive. So we'll start with you. How's it going?
Not bad, man. It's been a kind of a crazy weekend here. The weather's starting to get really hot out here, and yeah, I was off the grid a little this weekend, but I just saw that Rutger McGroarty news, and I'm kind of excited to talk about that later. So I'm doing well. How about you guys?
I'm doing great. How's it going, Devin?
Oh, it's always going good when we're less than a week out from the draft, right? And the Stanley Cup final is gonna finally be over after tomorrow night. So yeah, we're starting to get like into the actual beginning of the off season here really soon. I'm excited about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Peter, welcome to the show again. Last year you were on it, I believe the year before as well. So a common guest on this episode. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going great. As you know, draft is coming up. The Stanley Cup's almost over. Honestly, finally, it's almost kind of over because it's been like 2 weeks that this has been going on for. So, I'm glad we're at the end of that and the off season's about to kick off. So really excited about that.
Sure. And our the draft is days away. We're getting down to it and we're going to talk about the draft a bit here. We've talked about it many times in the shows. We'll get Peter's perspective on it. But let's start the show as we always do with our one good, one bad, but with a different twist. This will be a one good, one bad from the Red Wings prospect pool. It could be from it, it could be about it. And I'll start with you, Peter. A good and a bad from the pool right now.
If we're going to be talking about a good, I think the good bright spot is going to be Nate Danielson. I think that's one thing that you really got to keep an eye on. I mean, obviously, everyone's going to point to production, how it's not that great, but he's not that type of player. But the smarts is evident. It was evident this season, and even during the WHL playoffs, he was a force down the stretch. I mean, even with Team Canada too, I thought he was one of their better players and one of the players that was flying under the radar behind the stars that didn't quite play as well. But, Danielson was very, very noticeable there. Yeah, very busy season for him. Started off with the Wee Kings, had that trade, 41 points after that, 24 in the playoffs. You have to feel really good if you're a Detroit Red Wings fans that his progression is coming along very nicely. If we're going one bad, I would probably have to say Jared McIsaac, I think is one thing that maybe I had a lot of hope for him because I know he's dealt with a lot of injuries and everything like that in the QMJHL. I was hoping that he would start to turn things around. Kind of looked like that, but then this season he kind of took a step back from the one before. 15 games, went on loan, and I even mentioned it in the chat too. Before coming on, I was doing some research. I didn't think he was injured because I couldn't find anything, but the fact that he went on loan to the Swiss League, not a positive sign, but hopefully it's one that maybe it could turn out for the better. Again, progression and development is always a key thing. Hopefully he can turn it around, but the fact that he had to not even go down to the ECHL, he was on loan in a different league and overseas at that. I think that's one thing that you got to keep an eye on, but I'm hoping that it will work out in the process.
Yeah, he's kind of a little bit of a forgotten prospect this season because of that. Only 15 games, like you said. So yeah.
And also on loan to the Providence Bruins too. So he's still not even within the organization. I just caught that right now.
Yeah, he had a bit of a weird season, I guess. I not talked about it. It's probably the first time we've talked about him on this show this season, right? So yeah, bit of a forgotten guy, but hopefully he does turn it around, like you said there. All right, over to you, Evan. What do you got for a good and a bad from the pool?
Yeah, and just to follow up on that real quickly there, I when I got that text in the chat today from Peter, I too had forgotten about Jared McIsaac because we hadn't talked about him in so long. I was like, because I just like I'm so used to him like kind of not being the prospect anymore, one of the guys to watch. But yeah, poor guy, dude. Just real unfortunately, really unfortunate for the injuries and whatnot. And it's got to be frustrating. But yeah, it's that one. That one still gets me because I think the Red Wings thought, and I thought that he was going to be an impact player for the team. Yeah, my good did it. Axel, Sandin, Pellikka. That's my new guy, man. ASP. I'm all about that ASP. So that's a T-shirt right there, Devin.
Absolutely.
I'm really excited about his development this year, and I think he might be closer to being coming over than we think. Maybe even get a look, and maybe probably a year, just over a year, maybe. So yeah, I'm excited about ASP. Love that. And yeah, that's my stuff, man.
Yeah,
Devin, what do you got?
Axel Sandin Pellikka has been a favorite of mine since the draft too. I was stoked that he went to the Red Wings because obviously he was one of the better offensive defensemen in that draft, and he's just kept it going. So yeah, he's definitely a fan. I'm definitely a fan of his.
That was a Villapronic trade for Vancouver, so that's how we got ASP, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And Hronik's
Called the,
8 years in Vancouver here now, so
Yeah.
hopefully continues to
Have
be
fun with
good.
that contract.
All right, Devin, finishing with you, a good and a bad from the prospect pool.
I'm going to go general with my good. I think that just when you look at the prospect pool as a whole, you find a couple of really good prospects, at least a couple at every position. Whether it's, center, wing, maybe debate a little bit, but wing, defense, and even goalie. You got two really good goalie prospects as well. I think that over pretty much since Steve Yzerman took over in 2019, he's really um, done a good job of accumulating picks and accumulating prospects and just maintaining a deep prospect pool. A lot of debate about whether he makes the right picks, as is the case with any GM. But one thing that I think has been true for a long time now is just that they have a deep pool of prospects. And that should in turn mean a pool that yields NHL players for a long period of time, or at least that's what you hope for, at least. My one bad is going to be actually Elmer Soderblom. And the reason why he's my one bad is because he is somebody we've talked about within the last year. But then I think we talked about him a lot heading into the season. Matt, I'm pretty sure you projected him to be on the roster this past season, and he did not play a single game in Detroit this year. I think he's somebody that has really headed in the wrong direction over the last year or so. I still think he's a unique prospect just because of his size and what he can do with the puck and close and whatnot. But you did not see the type of growth you were maybe hoping for this year, especially considering, as we all know, he made the team out of training camp the previous season. So you maybe would have thought he had a fast track or the inside track towards a roster spot, but no. I think next season's going to be a huge one for Soderblom in terms of just his path forward with the franchise. If he's not playing games or at least pushing for games, I could very easily see next season being his last in the Red Wings organization. Just not where he should be considering where he was a year ago.
Yeah, I don't think he can play. I don't think he can skate at the NHL level and it'll hold up. I think that's the main problem. So he's another guy right about that.
Inconsistent efforts too. Like when he wants to be on, he's really, really good, but just too often he just doesn't. And it's frustrating. You can't do that when you're, trying to make a name for yourself as a prospect.
Interesting. Yeah.
Especially in a deep prospect pool where there's a lot of
Absolutely.
guys in competition for your spot. And if you don't perform, you're going to have a guy coming up really quickly to take your spot. And that's just how it is in a pool that has so much quality prospects. All right. Well, speaking of a couple prospects, we mentioned their names already, and that is Nate Danielson and Axel Sandin Pellikka, the two first rounders from 2023. And both had really good seasons. Not just really good, great seasons. Nate Danielson got traded from the Brandon Wheat Kings to the Portland Winterhawks and had 41 points in 28 games with the Winterhawks. Just turned it on, then had 24 points in the playoffs too. So that was a big season for him. And then we all know what Axel Sandin Pellikka did in Sweden, got into double digits in goals in the SHL with 10 goals, and then had 7 points in 14 games in the playoffs too. So great seasons for both guys. And I'll start with you, Peter. You mentioned Danielson a bit there. So you can talk more about Axel Sandin Pellikka. What do you think about those two guys, their seasons overall?
Yeah, I don't want to dwell too much on, Danielson because I already talked about him as the one good because, as the top two prospects arguably in the Red Wings organization, I mean, just the way that Danielson is able to create off the rush and generate those chances, even when he may not be that productive at the NHL level, being that skilled and high IQ playmaker is going to pay off dividends for this organization. Yeah, and as for Sandin Pellikka too, I mean, getting double digits as an 18, 19-year-old in the SHL, is probably that's a top 3 league right there. As a teenager to get that opportunity, get those minutes and to make them count with his production again. 18 points, everyone's going to say, oh, it's not that great. But you know what? For him, that is a big step. And when you're a young player and you get those minutes and you get those games, if you play more than 39 games and get more than 15 minutes as a young player, you're doing something right. And his ability to find the back of the net is just outstanding. And he's a dual offensive playmaker, shooter. He could do it all. This is a guy that's very effective off the rush. He can push defenders back. He gets into the lanes very, very easily, and he can manipulate situations very effectively as well. I mean, it seems like every single time, he was not probably flying a little bit under the radar to World Juniors last year, quickly earned those minutes, was a leader this time around. So every single year he's developing and he's becoming more of a leader and impact player, no matter what level he's at.
Yeah, and we'll see. I don't know when he's going to come over to the NHL. It's probably soon. I mean, I would think. He looked really good in like you said, in a league, in a really high end league. We'll see what happens next season. Evan, I'll go over to you since you already raved about Pellikka. What do you think about Danielson and ASP this season?
Well, first I'm going to talk to Devin. We got to do this t-shirt deal here. That's gonna be big, man. That could be our merch, Anyway, yeah, it's funny now with Danielson. All we heard about this past year was that Yzerman reached for that pick, and you're not hearing that as much, the past couple of months, especially since he was traded. He looks like he's going to be a player, and I think he will see games next year in Detroit. He looks like that type of between the second and third line guy that can just, create chances off the rush, and exactly what, Peter said. I don't have to repeat it, but yeah, I'm really excited about him, and ASP too, man. I know everyone hates the comparisons, but I see Quinn Hughes. I see a right-handed Quinn Hughes, and I know everyone always makes the comparison because, they're both smaller players, but they're excellent skating and the vision and their creativity. It's something that I think is going to be really special, and I'm very excited for him. Very.
Yeah, I see that too. I think he's got a lot of those similar skills, a similar skill set. So I'm really excited to see what he can do for sure. Devin, what about you? What do you think about these two guys?
I don't have too much more to add. I think Peter and Evan touched on both guys pretty well. I just think a big thing for me is, like Evan just said, there was a lot of chatter, even from me, that the Red Wings maybe reached a bit for Nate Danielson and maybe he wasn't the right pick at 9th overall. Like Marco Kasper the year before, what do you know? A year later, it looks like they made a pretty good pick. I do think getting traded to a contender did help him a lot. Turns out playing with talent does bring out talent. And also some good traits were highlighted. I also just want to highlight his competitiveness as well as his on ice and off ice leadership. In his prior stop, he was actually the captain of was it the Frontenacs or the Wheat Kings? I'm getting the two mixed up right now.
Wheat Kings
Wheat
for
Kings,
Danielson,
thank you.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he was their captain last year. As a draft eligible player. That's not insignificant. Lord knows I love my players that have those leadership qualities. And then also, like I said, is competitiveness. I think that's a trait that the Red Wings just look for in prospects. I think you saw that a lot in the preseason. And then I saw that a lot in his little 2 or 3 game audition in Grand Rapids as well. Duke can just play. I think he does. I agree. He does play games next year in Detroit. And I think that it probably won't be too much longer after this season or this coming season that he's pushing for, top 6 minutes, honestly. And then ASP, I mean, he might be the most exciting prospect in the Red Wings pool. Um, Debate whether he's the best, but exciting, I think he absolutely is. And it's because he looks like Quinn Hughes. It's because he looks so different than any other defenseman in their pool. Um, William Wallander, at Simon Edvinson, Atitu Amisto. I can go down the line. They're all bigger dudes that have skill, and that certainly is an attractive thing. But then there's sending Pellikka, who's under 6 feet tall and just does things that 18, 19-year-olds don't do, especially blue liners. I think he has a chance to be something special, honestly, something that teams look for in the draft, especially and to get him at 17th overall, I think I don't know, I loved that pick at the time. I still love it today. And I agree, Evan. We got to get those shirts made because I would wear
Man,
it
I
on the
knew
next
it. I
episode.
knew it.
Yeah, that'd be great. And the thing is I do think he has that top 4 potential and a 56, well, even more, who knows, 70 point plus, being able to be that quarterback on the power play, just bunch of assists, and he can score too. So I mean, I think he'd definitely be in that 70 point range.
Absolutely.
In that same realm as all these other offensive defensemen that can put up those numbers. So yeah, really excited to see both of them in the NHL very soon. And yeah, that's pretty much all you can say about those two guys.
I wanted to bring up one quick thing that I saw today. I mentioned earlier in the show, but and this plays off what Devin just said about Danielson. Like I am a huge Rutger McGroarty fan, and this rumor coming out if the Jets are going to move him, this guy's been playing in Michigan for the last 11, 12 years. He grew up here. He has some of those similar traits that Devin's talking about. He's the captain of the World Juniors. He was their best player for USA, best player at World Juniors. It looks like a Detroit kind of guy that Yzerman would kind of like, and I'm curious to see. You've got to imagine that the Red Wing scouts have had eyes on him with him playing right down there down the street
For sure.
I'm curious if that's a Red Wings target here coming up. Just something to throw out there real quick.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that are probably going to be involved in those talks with him, but if he doesn't want to sign in Winnipeg, and it sounds like that's a possibility. Yeah, lots of teams, but Detroit has a pretty big connection there. Playing Michigan, right? So
I was just about to say too, the cost, no matter what team you're going to be, it may be lower than expected. Like you're probably looking at maybe the same thing as the Cutter Gauthier trade with Jamie Drysdale, because he holds all the cards right now. And if they're going to be like, well, we want max value, but he's not happy there, they're not going to get that max value. So other teams are probably going to lowball slightly a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it kind of sucks for teams like Winnipeg because, I mean, let's be honest, like I love it there, but the players don't want to play there, and it's really hard to get a sell in that state. Yeah. And then what I read today is that you didn't like the the way the organization has handled their prospects in the past.
The development.
And so
that's big.
So that was one of the things. So I'm curious to see if he moves, man. I like this player. He's a bulldog. And he gives you he's not the fastest guy, but he's a bulldog. Yeah. He's not afraid to go in the dirty areas and drive the net. And I think that's the kind of player Detroit really needs right now.
Sure. And it's a great name too.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the best. One of the best in that draft class.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move to goaltending and talk about the two best goaltending prospects that the Red Wings have, and that's Sebastian Cossa and Trey Augustine. Augustine drafted this past 2023 draft, and Cossa, I'll everyone knows where he was drafted, and ahead of some pretty big names too. So let's talk with these guys. And I'll start with you, Peter. What do you think about Sebastian Cossa and Trey Augustine next season? What do you expect from them? Because like I say, Cossa had a really good season in Grand Rapids, and it's kind of boosted his stock now that everyone's like was worried about him at the beginning. Now maybe not as much. And then Trey Augustine had a great season in the NCAA too. So one of the best goaltenders in college. So these guys are going to have high expectations going into 2024-25. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm just going to start off with Cossa quickly. I know like too many times on here, we've talked about how his development has been kind of up and down and rocky, but I think he's found his footing right now because of the season. It does take a while for goaltenders to, find their rhythm, find their game. And I think there are a lot of high hopes and expectations with Cossa, but I think it's kind of settled in with him because you look at the numbers from this season compared to last season, and it's on par with what he did in Toledo in the ECHL. This season, it just basically matched that. So hopefully next season could be another step forward in his direction as, I think he still stays in the AHL, get him seasoned a little bit more and who knows what happens with their goaltending situation after next season. But if he does well in 24-25, I think it's not out of the picture that 25-26 he can start pushing for a spot. And as for Trey Augustine, he was my top goaltender last year, and big reason why: NCAA championship and World Junior Championship in one season. Very technically sound. He's got great vision to track the puck. The movements are very, very smooth. There's again big reason why he was a solid foundation for Team USA and Michigan State. Because of that, I think it's mainly because, sorry, not the main NCAA championship, but Big Ten championship. I'm going to reiterate that and avoid confusion there because University of Denver won the championship before anybody says anything. They won the Big Ten championship. So.
I went to Michigan State, so I was like, wait a second.
Yeah. cover myself there. I wanted to go backtrack a little bit. I'm
all good.
Just so that, but yeah, I know the fact that he won titles this year, he won awards, big step for him in his development. It's going to be a great battle between the two because at some point you're going to have that kind of situation where, okay, which one do we feel more comfortable with as a starter? And someone's going to want more minutes later on. You're probably not necessarily going to have to trade one of them, but there's going to be a big question mark between the two, like who are you more comfortable with? And I'm definitely excited to see how that's going to play out because Cossa, especially, he needed to have a big season and he did. And Augustine's just continued to surpass expectations right now.
Yeah. Devin, what do you think about Cossa and Augustine? I mean, we've talked about both of them, mostly Cossa. Augustine, we haven't touched on as much throughout the season, but what are their expectations going into next season?
I think you're kind of hoping for just more of the same and build on it next season. I think, we'll start with Cossa. Like you said, we've talked about him a lot, so I don't have too much to say. Steve Yzerman, just the other day, when he had his pre-draft press availability, he did kind of briefly mention that the goal for Cossa is to take on a bigger role in Grand Rapids next year. And that coincides with what we've been saying on this show. We kind of expect him to, he was in a tandem this year with Michael Hutchinson. Next year, it seems like he's going to be the guy. He's going to start 50 or more games in the AHL. And that's what you want to see out of your, presumed future starter. Let him start to be the starter, right? So that's all I expect. I expect Cossa to build on what he did this year. He looks like like Peter said, looks like he's on the right track now. He's found his footing. He knows what it means to be a pro, and now he's just got to produce. And it looks like he's on track to do that. Trey Augustine, I think, again, kind of more of the same. Just continue to be one of, if not the best goalies in the collegiate level. And then I wouldn't be surprised if once Michigan State's season is over next year, we start to talk about him signing his ELC with the Red Wings. Maybe he is Cossa's backup to finish next year in Grand Rapids. That'd be kind of fun. I do think that the Red Wings are going to be as mindful with him about playing time and all that good stuff as they have been with Cossa. So I don't think they're going to rush him to Grand Rapids, especially while Cossa's there. Um, but also, if he kind of shows that he's got nothing more to prove at the collegiate level, then that tells me it's time to go pro. And whether that means he's the starter in Toledo or um, Costa's 1B, so to speak, I'm excited about it, and I do think, like I said, that's what we'll be a year from now. So yeah, just to kind of wrap that up, I think both goalies are on the right track. I think they just need to kind of build on what they did this year, because ultimately, I don't know that you could ask too much more from them. I think that after, like you kind of insinuated, like you said, when they drafted Augustine, there was maybe some, are they starting to pivot away from Cossa? Oh, what is this? I don't think that's the case anymore. I think that now we can just be excited that the Red Wings have two really solid goalie prospects in their pool. And, who knows, maybe one day they do have a Linus Allmark, Jeremy Swayman type of deal with those two.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely see that. I think they could be the 1A, 1B type thing. And then, of course, one of them has to be traded eventually. And that's just what happens. Evan, you have anything to add about Cossa and Augustine?
I got to be honest, man. I feel like the last lion to a dinner party here with Peter and Devin eating all the meat off the bone and leaving me scraps because they said everything I wanted to say. No, I mean, I really was impressed with Trey Augustine. We beat the Cossa thing to death this year. Trey Augustine, and obviously I'm going to be biased as a Michigan State grad. But he really impressed me. I mean, even in the World Championships, he held his own there, and I thought he played pretty well, damn well. He had like a 1.89 goals against average in like 4 games. So from everything I've heard and read, this guy's doesn't shy away from the moment. He actually steps it up. A great kid, apparently. He's from Michigan as well. So I'm really excited about him, probably a little more because of all this stuff. But I really like him, and what's great about it is having two great goalie prospects. If one doesn't work out, you got another chance with another one. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm hoping this is going to be fun down the road. Again, I mean, best case scenario, they're both good, but then how long can we keep them both? So, but I'm very excited for the future for the goaltending. I wouldn't be surprised, if Cossa maybe got a late game call up this season, just maybe for a game or two, just to give them a taste, like Minnesota did with Wallstedt this year.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see that. I mean, they were drafted the same year, so I'm not against it, but yeah, it's gonna be fun to see.
I also real quick just want to throw out kudos to Trey Augustine for stepping up for Team USA at the Worlds.
Yeah.
That's a tournament with basically all NHLers, and for him to be thrust into it kind of unexpectedly. Alex Lyon had to leave with a finger injury. For him to not only step into that stage, but then to actually look really good there too. If you weren't excited about him before, I think you are now.
Preach, brother, preach.
Yeah, I'm excited to see both these guys, in the AHL at least, very soon, and then battling it out down there before one of them gets a backup job in the NHL, or maybe even the starter, who knows. All right, well, let's start doing some grades on our prospect pool here, and I'll start with you, Peter. I'll always start with the guest. How do you grade Detroit's prospect pool? From we'll use the report card letter grades. What do you give them?
I would give them right now. I mean, considering that, with all the names moving up, they're still keeping it stockpiled. And I think when you have a top 3 of, I mean, I'm not going to include Simon Edvinsson because he's already at that 25 game mark. Could probably move past that. But even with him out of the picture, Marco Kasper, ASP, Nate Danielson, that's a solid top 3 right there. And then you have like other names behind them, like, Carter Mazer, drawing a blank here. Who else? Amadeus Lombardi. I've been a big fan of his from the OHL. You have other names and other depth pieces behind them. I would give them a solid B plus right now, teetering on A minus. I still have some question marks about the rest of their defensemen after that. I mean, really want to see more what William Wallander can do. I know Albert Johansson just got extended with another 1-year deal. Want to see him take another step forward. Same with Emil Vero. They have great names. I just want to see a little bit more of, but I would probably give them a solid, B+ rating right there.
All right. What about you, Evan? What are you grading the
We're
prospect?
gonna find out about Johansson really quickly here because
Yeah.
he's got to be on the roster this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the prospect pool. No, I mean it's the best it's been in a long time. I think Yzerman he's made some really good first round selections. It's the second round I start to question a little bit though, because some of these guys really kind of fallen off the map. But overall, no, they're in a good spot. Like you said, with Casper and Danielson and ASP. I mean, those are prime prospects. So I'm really happy with where the organization's at now, and I'm really excited to see that. I think they're going to get a very impactful player in this draft at 15. Every mock draft you look at, there's going to be options there. So I'm pretty excited for this draft. And I'd probably give him about the same B+, teeter and A-.
All right. Devin, what about you? Are you around that same grade? What do you got?
Yeah, I would agree B+. And I think that depending on what day it is, I could probably be talked up to an A-. I think ultimately what it really comes down to is how you feel about the top end of their prospect pool. I think there's still a very common narrative out there that the Red Wings don't have any like impact prospects or high end or whatever. People still hung up on them taking Marco Casper instead of Matt Savoy in 2023 or 2022, sorry.
Yeah.
Nate Danielson was another one of those where it's like I think they left some upside on the board. I think if you're super sold on the guys they've taken, you're probably at an A range. If you're maybe hedging your bets on them a little bit, I think you're kind of down into where we're at with this B thing. I think we're all excited about these prospects. I'm sure I speak for the group when we say we're all excited about these guys. For me, it's more of because like I said, the top, they have a lot of depth. I think that if this guy doesn't work out, then maybe this guy will. They can kind of go down the chain, so to speak, and it's not like their hopes are pinned on 4 dudes. But I think to kind of echo what Peter said, I want to see more, not just from some of their depth guys, but also some of their high end guys. I want to see, Marco Casper had kind of a rough first half of the season. And then in the second half, he kind of figured it out and started to look like the Marco Casper that we all kind of got excited about last year. I want to see him carry that on into next year and start to, hopefully he's pushing for NHL minutes from the get-go, from training camp. But until he does that, maybe, hedge your bets a little bit. Even like a Nate Danielson, you kind of debate what his upside is. Is he going to be a 1C? Is he going to be a 2C? Heck, is he going to be a winger? I don't think he's going to be a winger, but like still, there's enough uncertainty out there that you're not 100% sure. I think the Red Wings have a ton of really good prospects, and I think that the reason why I'm not sold on them being in an A range is because I'm not sold that they have like a real what's the phrasing I want to use here? They don't have like a true
Blue chip?
you hate to yeah that's the phrase elite blue chip, something like that. You hate to use like a Connor McDavid because there's only one of him.
Yeah.
And even if you go down the scale to like a Nathan McKinnon, even that, there's only one of those. So just, one of those guys that you just go, oh yeah, he's going to be dynamite in the NHL. They don't have any surefire guys. But that doesn't mean they don't have a lot of guys to be excited about.
I agree with that. I think, Nate Danielson specifically, I think he's a Bo Horvat type. I mean, Horvat's definitely, he's now turned into that probably
best case scenario,
borderline top line center. But I think Danielson definitely is a second line for sure. But yeah, that legitimate number one, we'll have to see on that. But he's definitely going to be that Jonathan Taves type. I'm going up from Horvat, but that type of guy where we won't
keep going higher.
We'll keep going 100 points. He won't be 100 point guy, but he'll crack 70, but he'll be one of those like all around two-way guys that you want on the ice. So I'm in the same range. I think B plus, A minus. I'm really excited to see what Axel Sandin Pellikka can be. I think he can be a top pairing guy. But again, until they do it in the NHL, you don't know. And we'll see what those two guys do. All right, before we pay the bills, got to get our top 3 prospects. You guys mentioned them all. They're probably all the same, but we'll see where they rank. So, Peter, who are your top 3 in the Red Wings prospects here?
I'm just gonna again. If we're going at the 25 game mark, Evanson's out, so I'm gonna go ASP, Danielson, Casper, 1, 2, 3.
All right, Evan, is it the same, or are you changing the order?
No, it's exactly the same.
Devin?
Yeah, exactly.
I will switch it up a little bit. I'm gonna go ASP Casper Danielson, and it's literally just that extra year of development.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Axel Sandin Pellikka number 1. And I'm going Danielson 2 and Casper 3. I think Danielson and Casper are similar players. I think they're both going to be similarly not sure if they're going to be top line centers, but they're just going to be those two guys you're going to want in the lineup. It's just where are they going to fall?
Another guy that we forget about too, though, is Buchelnikov from the Russia.
Absolutely.
He's very underrated.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he comes through when he comes through. I'm thinking it might be after this season. But
he's an interesting one, especially with the news that just came out about Michkov.
Right. That's where I was going. Yep. Yeah. Love those Vipers, man. We've had a good history with them in Detroit.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's pay the bills before we start shifting gears to this year's draft and talk about this year's draft. 2024 NHL draft guide here at the Hockey Writers, full of a lot of information. If you want to know about the prospects that are in this draft, head over there. We got prospect profiles galore. We got 130 plus published. Also got a bunch of features, bunch of different things that Mark's putting out this week. Different, great stuff to take a look at. Take a look at the 2024 NHL draft guide. And also take a look at the YouTube channel. Got a lot of videos out there as well that we did on the draft. So go and take a look and make sure to just keep following us here for the draft as well. All right, let's move to talk about more Red Wings focused on the 2024 draft. And since we've talked about at length on the show about the targets, we're just going to ask Peter this one. Who are some players that Detroit should target in the first round and the second round? We won't go beyond that because you never know what guys get picked in there. So first and second round, we had a mock draft. We picked Beckett Seneca as the pick. But Peter, who are your targets for the first and second round?
Well, it's interesting that you just mentioned Seneca right now. I've been on Matt. You know me. I've been on the Seneca train all season long, even dating back to last year. It's interesting because also Devin mentioned at the beginning that, maybe the wing position isn't their strongest suit right now. So hence why you went Beckett Seneca. And I would fully agree. I mean, he probably has the best set of hands in this draft class. I mean, watching him with Oshawa, the top prospects game, even in the playoffs before he got injured, he was coming up clutch in big moments and he was raising his stock as a result of that. And to have that power forward game, but being deceptive and a very strong playmaker, it's a different combination because when you think of a power forward, you think of a shooter. He likes to be deceiving and he makes plays very, very well. So it would not surprise me. There's talks about him probably going top 10, even earlier at the combine. But, if he's in that range, you could expect to see him there. If we're going another winger, I think Michael Branstad-Nygaard. I think he's probably one of the more physically matured and developed players that can make the jump right away. And a team that's on the cusp of making that playoff push, I would think that the Detroit Red Wings would like to have an NHL-ready player like him in the fold already because he's already looking good in the Allsvenskan League, playing amongst men. Looked great at the World Hockey Championships as well. I'm just going to throw this as a major wild card because you don't know where he's going to go. And that is someone by the name of Cole Yzerman. I really don't know what's going to happen with him. He could go anywhere between 10 to 15. and that's exactly where the Detroit Red Wings could take him, or where they're picking. The one thing that stood out for me is that when he was doing his scrum at the combine, he was talking about how teams were asking about his goal scoring abilities and everything like that. And he said that, he knows he needs to round out his game and be a little bit more effective instead of just being that one-dimensional goal scorer. I think teams may start to take note of that. And maybe if he's willing to put in that work, a team like Detroit can pair well, especially with a playmaker like Lucas Raymond. Imagine him dishing the puck off to Yzerman, and maybe being a top line left wing alongside, Dylan Larkin as well. Who knows? Interesting to see how it's going to play out. But I think, based off what Devin said earlier about wings, I think they should address the wing position, but there are a lot of great options there.
And
yeah, I don't think.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't think anybody in this involved with this draft has any clue where he's going. Because I think he's one of obviously the biggest wild cards.
He's a polarizing player, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also wondering if there's attitude issues too, because you've seen things. I've seen interviews with him where he speaks in the third person. I'm just curious, because that's to break Cole Caulfield's goal record. That's a pretty big feat.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to wonder why he's not someone locked in, because the talent is obviously there.
Yeah,
the talent's there. I'm curious if there's some kind of attitude or anything that anyone's heard about with him, because I don't know. But like I said, when somebody speaks in the third person, that comes off as a little arrogant to me. But whatever. That's just me, maybe. So, just throwing that tidbit out there.
For sure.
There's a former Red Wings and Maple Leafs coach that refers to himself in the third person from time to time, and he is known to be kind of arrogant. So that tracks.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some later round picks. After I said let's not go to the later rounds, let's do that and talk. I know we picked John Mustard as the second round pick, in our mock draft as well.
Yes.
So two of Peter's favorites going to the Red Wings, according to us. So I'll start with you, Devin. Who are you looking at in the later rounds going out here for the Red Wings?
I just got to ask, who picked John Mustard?
Consensus. I think it was.
It was consensus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Also,
I think he's not being
opportunity here.
I think he's not being talked enough. I thought he looked fantastic. He has that speed game, and I think that's something that the Red Wings could look at, because he has an underrated offensive ability right there.
Sure. Isn't he going to Michigan? Is he going to Michigan?
He is.
Or am I thinking of somebody else? Sorry.
That's a good question.
I thought I read that.
That is a very good question. He is Providence College. So no.
Oh, Providence. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So he's going to play with Trevor Conley.
Yeah. We likened Mustard to Chris Draper 2.0. So that's where we got there. My player outside of the first two rounds I want to talk about, just because this is a Red Wings podcast, so we gotta highlight connections when we can. I think the Red Wings will take a good long look at Lucas Fischer, probably in the third round. He is the son of Yuri Fischer, former Red Wings defenseman, who unfortunately is known mostly for his collapse on the Red Wings bench back in 2006. Had a very promising career ahead of him and was cut short due to that. I think that this is a fun way to kind of bring it full circle and have his son join the organization. And he was born here in Michigan, while his dad played for the Red Wings. But it's not, it's not just, his dad played for the Red Wings, so let's draft him. He's pretty good in his own right. He's kind of a string bean. He's tall, 6'3", but then he's 180 pounds. Could definitely use some added muscle, added weight, but that'll come with time. He moves the puck really well. His dad actually was kind of underrated as a puck mover, but he was kind of known more as just like a defensive guy. I think that Lucas, for his credit, like I said, can move the puck pretty well, and I think that as he combines his puck moving ability with his size as he develops and matures physically, he could become a nice little I'll say bottom four defenseman. I don't think he has top line potential, but I think that depending on how his development goes, he could be a middle pairing guy. Um, but I think as you stand right now, I think you project him as a third pairing guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything. Like I said, I think it'd be a really cool story just because of who his dad is. But also the Red Wings like to take flyers on defensemen outside of the first round, guys that maybe need a little bit of extra development, but could really become something as long as they have the time to develop. And I think Fisher kind of fits that mold as well.
Yeah, that'd
that's a
be cool,
good,
man.
that'd
I
be a
still
good
remember
idea.
that moment when Fisher went down, exactly where I was, and he's kind of a player we forget about sometimes. But yeah, he does work for the organization, and
Yeah.
that'd be a come full circle. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be a cool story. Evan, what about you for later round picks? Do you have anyone in mind?
Uh, I mean, I don't past the first round. I keep seeing these mock drafts where Alphonse Frey is going in the second round, and I don't know how. Like I feel like I think that guy will be like an end of the first round pick.
Yeah,
But
I do too.
I agree.
all these mocks I'm seeing them are like have the Red Wings like maybe grabbing him in the second. So that's an interesting one for me to watch because I think he's a first round pick.
Yeah.
A lot of other people are kind of moving him down the draft boards, and I don't know why, but I think that's a solid player if that was to happen in the second round. But again, too, I want that mustard just for the t-shirts. We got an AS, we got a mustard like saying, dude, like we're just banking. Yeah,
that worked pretty well.
Come for the
Peter.
draft analysis, stay for the t-shirt idea.
Yes.
yeah, there you go.
Peter, what do you got for some later round targets here?
I know I didn't mention a second round target, but I think, how fun would it be if maybe Leo Saline Wallenius was available and you could pair him up
There you
with
go.
Axel Sandin Pellikka,
Yeah.
where you
There you
have
go.
like
The three name guys.
the three name players where the jerseys nameplate's going to be a little bit long. But I think, Detroit likes puck moving defensemen. There are a lot of good quality ones, especially from Sweden. Like Evan mentioned, Alphonse Frey, Wallenius, Noel Franzen is one of my favorites because he has that big body and speed to, shield the puck well and attack very swiftly. But I think they go more forward later rounds too. One name that really started to pick up for me was Oscar Vuole. I think he's one name that's really flying under the radar because he has that work ethic. Yeah, the defensive game can be a little bit inconsistent, but man, he is very creative. He's very much in position most of the time, timing the breakup plays very, very well. He could transition. He's got that underrated aspect to his game. He's definitely flying under the radar, I think. I don't know if Jack Berglund is going to be available in the third round, but I think he's someone up the middle that. And I probably mentioned a lot of Swedes because Detroit goes that route most of the time. But I really liked his game at the U18s. Very steady, very sound, two-way game. Thought he was really, really good. Even Ollie Josephson too, kind of a similar player. Maybe he needs a little bit more time, but I think those are some players that could be reasonably selected in the third round, possibly on.
Yeah, I like all those names. I'll throw in Jack Bodine. He's another Swede.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got some upside too. Being on that mid-round area as well. So yeah, lots of names. We probably get them all wrong. In the later rounds at least, we'll probably get some first round, second round guys maybe right. But have we gotten one right? I don't think we have.
Evan?
Completely right.
I don't think so. I don't know.
I don't know. We'd have to go back. But
Yes.
yeah, it's
check the tape.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see who the Red Wings pick. All right, some quick fire questions now. And first one we've talked about a lot on the show too and now we're just gonna final prediction before the draft here. Devin, did any trades happen with Yzerman?
Just real quick, because now I'm thinking about it. I think that Peter might have thrown out Trey Augustine last year as a potential pick for the Red
I think
Wings.
he did, yeah. Now that I'm remembering, yeah.
Yeah,
I did.
I think if nothing else, there you go, Peter. That's why we have you on. I'm gonna give the lame answer and say yes, he will, but he's gonna do one of those trades where you're trading this pick for that pick, and moving up or moving down. I think he's good. I think he has at least one of those in him. I don't think he's going to do anything exciting on the draft floor, but
Yeah.
I'd be happy to be proven wrong.
Yeah. Well, we said last draft, or like, he's going to trade a second round pick. Nope. He made them all. Oh, wait. I think he actually maybe moved one. He didn't draft all in a row. Something like that. I can't remember. But I know he didn't make anything thing where like, oh, he's going to package a second rounder to get. No, didn't happen. Evan, what about you? Is there any trades going to happen on the draft floor?
Yes. Next year's first round pick for Rutger McGroarty. I'm screaming it right now.
There you go.
All right.
That's my dream scenario right now. I'm sure you guys can talk about it, but I like Rutger.
I'd love that to happen too. Peter, what about you? Is a trade happening?
Probably for some smaller deals, but I don't think anything major.
Nothing major. Yeah, I don't know. I think the most likely maybe is that Rutger McGroarty trade, maybe. But yeah, I don't know if he's gonna go for a first rounder. I would think he would. It would have to be in there. But
After 14.
Yeah, he was a pretty high draft pick. So I'm sure Jets aren't gonna want something little for him.
Nope.
All right. I'll start with you, Devin. Yzerman says that they're gonna get an impactful prospect at 15th overall. Do you agree that they're going to get an impact player there?
Oh, yeah. And I think that, as we kind of mentioned last week, I think the fact that the top of this year's draft is so loaded with quality defensemen, I don't want to say it guarantees that the Red Wings are going to get a really good forward prospect, but it sure feels like it. It feels like there's going to be at least one forward that maybe would go a lot higher in other drafts is going to be there at 15. Or it feels like they're going to get somebody that is maybe a little underrated that is going to surprise some people. I mean, it's one of those things where the hit rate on the 6th, the 8th, and the 9th picks are definitely a lot higher than 15th overall. The math just tells you that. But also, the Red Wings have had some pretty good luck with 15th overall over the last 10 years or so. Dylan Larkin was the 15th pick. Sebastian Cossa was the 15th pick. Obviously, we know a lot more about Larkin than we do about Cossa. But we feel pretty good about Cossa right now, and Larkin's the captain of the Red Wings. So I think if nothing else, I feel really, really good that they're going to get a really, really good prospect. Are they going to get somebody who is a franchise pillar? I don't know. But I think that they'll get a player at the very least. And how they develop that player and how the other players in their pool develop as well, I think are going to kind of dictate what ultimately comes of that pick. But yes, I don't think they're going to strike out with this pick.
Mm-hmm. History's on their side, like you said. There's a couple good guys there. Larkin being the biggest one. Peter, what do you think? Are they going to get an impact player there? I mean, like I said, Berkeley Catton could drop down there. I don't know. Like the undersized. I don't know if he can drop that far. That's pretty far.
That would be a big mistake.
Yeah, it would be
a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they get a really strong prospect at 15. Names I mentioned. I wouldn't count out also Liam Greentree on the wing. Yeah. Doesn't have the speed, but he can finish very, very well. I know that Evan was asking about one prospect that is probably going to University of Michigan, and I think I may have found that, and that is Michael Haig. Yes. From the Chicago Seal, and he bumped the stock up to a top 10 prospect among North American skaters. Highly skilled, really popped off in the second half, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's probably on their radar as well to fill up the middle of the ice as well.
Yeah, he's a name we talked about last week too.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he's a good one too. There's a lot of guys, they're not sure where they're gonna go. They're gonna fall in the draft, which is gonna be fun. I think after the first, I'm gonna say after the top 5, we're gonna be. I'm not sure where guys are gonna go, and even the top 5 is not solidified really.
It definitely feels like the most wide open draft we've had in a while. Maybe probably since like 2021 when we were coming off of that COVID year.
Yeah, where everyone didn't know what was gonna happen. That this one does seem very uncertain. And everyone's not sure if Shunov was going to go second, and If Demidov, now that Michkov is, that could change things for Chicago, saying, well, maybe we're more confident drafting Demidov.
Essentially the fun happens at number 2.
Yes.
Yep.
Once Sabourin is gone,
Yeah.
what other stuff happens?
I say we just let San Jose make the pick right now so we can just get to the fun part right away.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think Greer already probably leaked it, so it's already a done deal.
Already done. Already done. I already got my piece ready.
There you go.
It's all ready to go. Evan, are you same thing? Are you good with
Beckett Seneca, baby? Beckett, I'm all aboard that train. But the more I read and the more I see, I think he might be gone before we get there. I mean, he's got to be one of the biggest risers up the board.
Yeah.
Even if he's not there, again, they're still going to get an impact player.
Oh yeah.
There's we haven't talked about Constantinius as much as could be there. Beckett Seneca could be there. We just Peter just mentioned Liam Greentree, plays right down the street in Windsor, so I'm sure the Wings have good eyes on him.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a good prospect coming out of this draft, and I'm gonna say they're gonna get an impact forward.
Yeah. I think they're definitely drafting a forward. I don't think they're going defense.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a really good forwards at that point for sure. All right, last question, and this is predicting in the future because we want this to happen because we don't want any of these picks anymore. Devin, is this the last time Yzerman's going to hold a lottery pick as a GM of the Red Wings? Because we want them in the playoffs.
I think I know what your answer is going to be, Matt, because you are the eternal optimist of all of us. I am going to say no. And the reason why I say no isn't necessarily because of next season. I think it's until the Red Wings really establish themselves as a playoff team, they're going to be right there with the Buffaloes, the Ottawas, all those teams that just missed, as well as the teams that just made it, the Washingtons, the Pittsburghs, I think they're going to be in that group for a while, and not every team can make it. I think the Red Wings may very well make the playoffs next year, and then the following year fall short for one reason or another. So no, I think Yzerman will get another lottery pick, but I think that the days of really crossing your fingers for the first overall pick are done. I think they're to the point now where the best they could pick is like 15th or is 5th overall because you only jump up 10 spots. Yeah.
Evan, are you optimistic or are you the same thing? Is this the last time?
I'm not sure about that. This is a question I'd rather answer like after free agency to see what they're doing. Honestly, next season we could see a drop off. If Patrick Kane moves on, David Perron, and they start inject this lineup with a youth movement, there could be a drop back. As compared to what we saw this season. I don't know if Kane's coming back, so that's probably one of the biggest things I can think of that bothered me. But obviously Raymond and Seider getting better. And Raymond looks like a superstar to me. He just does. Mm-hmm. You can see it, and if you guys don't believe it, I don't care. I do. I think he's gonna be I think he's gonna be a real good one. But I mean, it'd be nice to get James Higgins next year, right? But yeah, I'm going with Devin on this. I'm teaming up with Devin on this one, saying no, it's not.
All right, Peter, outside perspective, are you looking at, is this the last time Yzerman's holding the lottery pick, or are you the same as Evan and Devin here?
If their defense and goaltending can hold up, which I'm not overly confident in saying so, maybe hold on to the next few picks. If the team starts to play very well and by January they're, in a playoff spot, then you got to make a decision. Okay, are we going to go all in, or are we going to start packaging picks and prospects for added help right now to make us a contender even more? They just got to take it day by day, I think, at this point. I think they are right there. It's just you need to get that consistency and gel together so you can make that next push. And it's going to be relied on the core to do that. ask me in January, and then maybe we'll have a better answer then. But I think it's like 50-50 at this point.
Yeah.
I think depending on how the season goes, depending if they play well during the regular season, then you can start making those changes or necessary moves to bolster your roster.
Mhm.
I think they get a veteran goaltender, and then we're talking about a different story.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
a veteran goaltender last season, and I'm not talking about Alex Lyon, that would have pushed them into the playoffs. There's no doubt in my mind. There should be no doubt in one's mind on that.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of goaltenders on the market. A couple of obviously gone now because trades, but there are a few more. And Allmark looks like he's going to be gone somewhere elsewhere. It sounds like could be the Senators. There's a lot of goaltenders still around, but we'll see what the Red Wings do. I think I'm optimistic, but I'm not that optimistic. I'm in the same boat.
Oh.
I think they make the playoffs next year. I do. I'm optimistic on that, but saying that it's the last time that Yzerman's going to be holding a lottery pick as GM, I'm not going to go that far because, like you said, Devin, there's so many things that can change, and there's so much uncertainty. And teams that were in the playoffs last year, they're not in the playoffs this year. There are teams that are in the playoffs this year weren't. I mean, it's just there's so much parity and differences, and looking at the Buffalo Sabres and all these new coaches in the league next year, it just you don't know what these teams are going to go now. And
Yzerman calls up his buddy Pat Verbeek, brings in John Gibson. Boom. You guys think? No. It's just a rumor I keep saying, but whatever.
I think Gibson's on the move soon too. I don't know where, but
for sure.
He has to get out at some point.
Yeah, can't be. I mean, the Ducks are still a few years away, and I think
they're going to be good one day.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's so many teams like the Sabres too. I'm like, come on, they got to figure it out one day. That's so many good prospects. All right. Well, that's a big supersized episode for you guys. Thanks for joining me on show again. Thanks, Peter, for coming on the show.
Happy to be here.
Always love to have you. And make sure to check out everything at thehockeywriters.com, all the off-season coverage. We've got, of course, draft coverage for the Red Wings and for every other team. So make sure to checking out that draft guide. We got, if you want to know about all the prospects we talked about in this episode as targets, check out all their profiles because we got detailed scouting reports, a whole bunch of different fun stuff there. And then, of course, when the draft's going, make sure following along as well because we'll be breaking the news of all the picks, and then we'll react to it on an episode afterwards too. So we usually record, and we're on draft day. We may actually drop an episode and talk about their first round pick. So that's gonna be fun. And
funny how it always works out for us.
Yeah, it's actually working out this time. Right on draft day. So but until next time, we'll see you on another episode of The Grind Line.